Hello, my internet peeps. How are you today? This is Scott Rideshare. So today I want to tell you something that happened, I'm guessing about 2 months ago, and I apologize because things kind of blur around a little bit. I'm so busy, so without actually looking up when it happened, it's kind of hard to say exactly when it happened. But this is around the time that Uber went on strike. There were some Uber drivers in the UK, in New York, and in Chicago that went on strike. And what happened was I picked up a couple and their friend. It was two guys and a girl. And as we were talking, as we were talking, sometimes the couple was talking, sometimes the three of them were talking, sometimes I was involved in the conversation. And at one point, they turned around and said, "Hey, aren't you guys on strike?" And that was my response. I just laughed. Now, what I would say about this strike is actually a lot. I wouldn't be able to put it into a couple of minutes video. It would be pretty big because there are many moving parts involved in this. And mostly what the strike went into was pay for the drivers. Now, I did a video previously saying I don't like large corporations. I'm going to put the link down to the video down below in the description box. And part of what I was trying to say in that, the main thing I was trying to say in that video was that there were hidden costs to the company, that if they got rid of those hidden costs, they could afford to give me a raise. And just by me being where I was for as long as I was, they did get rid of some hidden costs, and they could have actually paid me from those hidden costs. The thing is what I was getting paid would show up on the bottom line and in the profit and loss statement, but it wouldn't, the hidden costs wouldn't reflect it. So they kind of just go with what can show up on the profit and loss statement, if you catch my drift. And I think a lot of companies do that. They know there's hidden costs, they get rid of the hidden costs, but because it doesn't show up on a profit and loss statement, they just pocket the profits. Also, when you think about low wages, a lot of times people think that the consumer has to pay more money. I'm also going to post a video down below, not made by me, but it's a separate video talking about if Wal Mart raised their prices to pay their employees, how much it would cost you, the consumer. Also, but see, the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, the thing is, there's a price to pay for low wages, and there's a separate video called the high cost of low wages, and I'm going to post that one down as well. So there should be 3 videos down there. I hope you look at them. I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope it kind of helps bring into focus some of the things that I'm saying. So maybe you could bookmark this video and come back to it, and then go to the description below and start watching those videos when you get a chance, okay? In either case, I don't believe consumers should pay more. Passengers don't want to pay more, but they want their drivers to get paid more. And I believe that there are hidden costs and there are ways to get around it where drivers can get more money and passengers don't have to pay more money. I'm sure there's a way to do it. Corporations are notorious for this kind of crap. Anyway, I don't like, in the example of, say, Walmart, when they're talking about raising the prices in order to pay the employees, I don't believe it should come out of the prices and the consumers paying for it. As far as I'm concerned, if you look at the Forbes list for the richest people, you'll know that Jeff Bezos has just recently supplanted Bill Gates, who'd been on the list for the longest amount of time. And a lot of people look at who's up at the top. And most people don't look below that. And if you look at around 4 or 5, all the way down to like number 12, there's one family that dominates that list, and that's the Walton family, who owns Walmart. So the way I look at things is that if you have somebody who's worth, say, $28 billion, and all of a sudden they're only worth $25 billion, I'm not going to cry for them. are you going to cry for them? I don't know why you would cry for them. I wouldn't cry for them. I don't defend billionaires like that. They've got plenty left over. So, in my eyes, where the money should come from is the Walton family. They should throw some of their billions back into the company to pay their employees. I don't think it's hard to think about that. Also, I don't know why anyone would defend them and say, no, they shouldn't. But yeah, okay, I do get into some arguments with people. But anyway, I believe money can be found. I believe corporations are just trying not to pay employees. But the point about the strike is back in the day, I always look at life through history, okay? What's happened before. Those that don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. And the way strikes occurred back in the day was you'd have people surround the manufacturing plant, the entrances and the exits, and they wouldn't let trucks get out with product, and they wouldn't let employees in to work to create more product, which effectively stopped the business. Now, there were employees that wanted to keep working, but the union wouldn't let them. And if they didn't go out onto the picket line, chances are their lives were threatened and endangered by the union. So they kind of, even if you didn't want to strike, you kind of had to strike. And people couldn't work. Well, it's different now because you're talking about Lyft and Uber, which are app-based companies. And are people really going to turn off their phones and stay off? There's no way to kind of stop that, which is why I don't think that it'll work. I'm going to talk about the results of the strike, or what I believe to be the results of the strike, in a separate video, because there's too much to talk about in a short span of time. In any case, how can it work? Well, I mean, I kind of came up with an idea that would need to be hammered out in order for it to work, but I think we need to get a guild, okay? Drivers would need to get a guild, okay? And the guild, I mean, I don't think a union will work because unions are basically for employees. We're not employees. We're like independent contractors or freelancers, however you want to look at it. And probably the most famous guild I could think of would be the Screenwriters Actors Guild, SAG, where actors and screenwriters join this guild and there's collective bargaining, and they do go out on strike if they need to. Well, in the case of this, it would have to be like an app-based guild. So essentially, the guild would have to contact drivers, and the drivers would have to voluntarily sign up for it. And when they sign up for it, what they're doing is they're allowing the guild to have access to their Uber and Lyft apps. And then the guild would go in for collective bargaining. And if it turns out to be bad and horrible, for the drivers, they would get up, they would walk out, they would send out a notification to everyone who has that app, and they would vote yes strike, no strike. And then if it comes out a majority yes, then you turn off the app. The guild would actually hit a button that would turn off drivers' Lyft and Uber app. So anyone who's a member of the guild wouldn't be able to turn on their app anyway. And it would only work if you have the majority of the drivers out there in the guild. And there's a lot behind that, okay? But it's app-based, and that's the only way I think a strike would be effective against an app-based company. Now, I did hear another Uber-tuber, right? And he believes that the strike worked. And his thought process behind it was that Uber wants to go into next year, they want to go public, they want to offer an IPO, and they don't want bad publicity. And he says that's the reason why the strike worked, because it provided bad publicity. I happen to think that the bad publicity didn't work and won't work, and I'm going to tell you why. Again, I'm going to look at history. Has anyone out there ever heard of the Ludlow Massacre? Raise of hands, show of hands, if anyone has heard of the Ludlow Massacre. Okay, I don't see any hands. Now, it's possible you raise your hands. I just didn't see it. The Ludlow Massacre occurred in 1914 in Colorado. Okay. There's a company called I'm not going to get into it. There's a lot of details, so I'm just going to give you the bare bones. There was a company called the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company, and what they did was they built a mining town, okay? And Rockefeller Sr. bought into the town to become a principal holder in the town, and when he died, he passed it on to his son Junior. And the mining town built a fence around the town to keep, so the miners and their families thought, to keep the riffraff out. Well, it also prevented, keep the riffraff out. It also prevented them from leaving the town. Now, the town pretty much had everything. It had nice housing. It had all the food they can need, use. And the town was owned by the company. So it was pretty much whatever the company's rules were, but what the laws were for the town, if that makes any sense. And the cost, because they were in pretty nice houses and they were getting good food, the cost of that was here, but what they were getting paid was here. And also, they were getting paid by the amount of tonnage of coal that they brought out. Does that sound a little bit like drivers who get paid for the amount of miles that they drive? And the miners also didn't get paid for what was called dead work. So let's say there was a tunnel and it needed to be shored up so it wouldn't collapse. Gas wouldn't, miners wouldn't suffocate. They wouldn't get paid for stuff like that. The equipment to haul the coal out, if that needed repairs, they wouldn't get paid for that. Does that sound a little bit like drivers? You don't want to, if I got to go get my tires fixed, I got to get an oil change, I don't get paid for that. I got to pay for it. Now look, I knew that when I got into it. And the point I'm trying to make is that the miners were focusing on the amount of tons they were bringing out, which caused unsafe working conditions. And they were here. So they started to go on strike. Well, first they were kicked out of their houses and they set up these tents. And the tents were designed to stop people from going into the mine and work. And Rockefeller called in the governor of Colorado, who called in the National Guard. And together with the security team, they went in and there was a massacre. 21 people died, including 2 women, 3 infants, and 8 children by either fires or by suffocation. Men were shot, killed. Now the result of that is there were some good things that came out of it, but I want to focus on the bad publicity part. It was a PR nightmare. And what Rockefeller did was he hired a PR guy to take care of this for him. What the PR guy did was he saw $100 million sitting over there. Now, he didn't use that money for the miners. What he did was he took it out to schools, universities, and hospitals, and he had wings built, showing philanthropy. And it caused a lot of good press. Now, Rockefeller is also the guy that did Rockefeller Plaza. This Rockefeller, the son, is the one that did Rockefeller Plaza in New York. And on top of that, what he did was he was wooing businesses in to Rockefeller Plaza. And one of the businesses he wooed in was Time Magazine, the company which he eventually bought. And it's Time Warner now, I believe. The names keep changing, but last time I looked, it was Time Warner. It was Time Warner AOL. I don't know, it's a long story. I don't want to get into it. But Rockefeller bought Time Magazine. Now, who do you think wrote Rockefeller's obituary? Yeah, that's right. Time Magazine. So, as a result, the massacre kind of gets swept under the rug by the philanthropy and eventual obituaries. So all the bad stuff is kind of forgotten about what Rockefeller did. There's the father too. I mean, there was a book written in 1908. I think her name was Ida Turnbell. You could look it up. She was an investigative journalist, and she wrote a book on how Standard Oil got to where it got to be. But that's neither here nor there. The point I'm trying to make is that the bad publicity can be swept under the rug pretty easy. And in fact, I do want to make a separate video talking about that. Anyway, tell me what you think about this, okay? Do you think that an app-based guild would work? What do you think about the strike? Did it cause any negative publicity? Most of you who are not drivers probably didn't even realize there was a strike going on. And a lot of you drivers may just say no, nothing. Anyway, I'd like to hear, all right? Please like, please subscribe, hit that bell notification so you'll know every time I post a video. Share the video with people. And write some comments down below. I'd like to hear what you think about this subject. And I want to thank you for watching. This is Scott Rideshare. Have a great day.